Greetings, friends. We are going to start up this week's survey or study of Brihat Samhita's Nakshatra chapter. And we're beginning with Chitra today, because we've covered up to there so far. What Varahamihira does in this chapter, in case you have forgotten, says the most appropriate, basically, occupation for a person born on the calendar day associated with a particular nakshatra. And the calendar day associated with a particular nakshatra is basically the same as the moon's nakshatra in your birth chart, but may not be exactly the same because it's the moon's nakshatra at the time of sunrise. Hey, Jimmy. All right. So let's see what he's got to say about Chitra. The interesting thing that we're doing with each shloka or statement is, first of all, learning what Varahamihira thinks of each nakshatra, and second of all, and doing so by kind of grouping the things, grouping the suggested careers together. Memories. All right, guys, let's take a look at Chitra. So for Chitra, he says, you should deal in jewels, precious stones, fine cloth. Make sense? Do you know what Chitra means? Chitra means sparkly. Basically, literally, Chitra means something like sparkly. And so it's a word that refers to jewels. Chitra means sparkly like a peacock feather or a sequin, where it's not the same kind of sparkle from every angle. So you get the concept of multifacetedness. So Chitra is a very multifaceted nakshatra. Looking at things from different angles lets it shine in different ways. That's a Chitra experience. That's a very Chitra experience. So therefore, jewels are very associated with Chitra because jewels are sparkly and multifaceted. So what he says here is, if you're born on the lunar day of Chitra, why don't you get a career in jewelry? It's not like he's really pulling something confusing out there. Fine clothes, because anything that looks nice. And now, the sutra from Taittiriya Brahmana about Chitra is that it's very excellent in expressing things in form. So a jewel has a very beautiful form to it. Form means something that you can see, something that can be perceived or sensed as a form. And Chitra is very excellent at understanding form and how to produce form from designs or from essences or from ideas. How to connect forms to ideas. So anything where you have to be very good with a form is a good career for Chitra. So making clothes, sewing, being a fashion designer, things of that nature. Memories with Happiness wants to know if can personality have... What's that? Chitra? Yes, personality should have Chitra, otherwise it's not beautiful. Then he also says you can try being a writer or a singer. Now, why would you be a writer or a singer? Because you're good at form, right? So Chitra is very good at expressing a substance in a form. And it's very good with beauty. Form means beauty, right? In Sanskrit, actually, the word for form is rupa, and the word for beauty is rupa. So form and beauty are the same. It's the desirable perceptivity of a thing is its beauty. Let's say, so therefore you're good with basically things that are beautiful. If you're a Chitra day person if you're born on the day of Chitra. Writers, singers, you can make perfume, same deal, right? How to be beautiful. Now, what's that word? Aha. Now, there's a couple of things that are less obvious. So far, very obvious, right? Chitra is about the form or the beauty. So, therefore, if you are born under the influence of Chitra, get involved in careers that have to do with form and beauty. He says, now he has some different things. Good mathematician. Surgeon. Or occultist. So these three things don't seem to have anything to do with fashion, right? So what do they have to do with fashion? I mean, they don't seem to have anything to do with fashion. You got everything that's clearly like beauty, fashion, art. That's Chitra, and then all of a sudden he says you're good with math. Why is that? What he means by you'll be good at math is you'll be good at calculating. So you may not realize how much calculation goes into fashion. You may not realize how much calculation goes into beauty. But it does. And it may be, it's not done on paper, but it does. You may not realize what calculation is all about is how will an idea produce a result or a form. And that's what Chitra is really, at its essence, Chitra is really good at how an idea or a concept or a spirit or a feeling will produce a effect, a concrete effect, a perceivable effect. So, like, making theory is good for Chitra. Making equations to explain theories, predicting the movement of things by math, doing that kind of math. This is why probably what you're thinking is Chitra, career, right? Chitra, career. So what are you probably thinking? Just like I think 80% of people these days, if they hear Chitra and career, they're going to think architect. Everybody's like, Chitra, architect, yay. That's why, because of calculations and because of the ability to produce something tangible from a blueprint, from a design. So with this idea of mathematicians, he covers the same thing that these days people are really fixated on, is how Chitra is good with architecture. So basically what he's saying is, if you're born on the day of Chitra, get involved in jewelry, get involved in fashion, get involved in arts, especially writing and singing, expressive arts, get involved in cosmetics, get involved in things that require calculations and predictions, occultists. Right? That's his thing, what they call be an astrologer, be somebody who has to predict or is going to know what's going to happen ahead of time because you can predict things. And then he says surgeon. Surgeon knows how by surgeon, I don't think he means necessarily that you have to be specifically a surgeon and not a different kind of a doctor. But in any case, basically doctors they know how the inside of the body operates by seeing the outer symptoms. And that's what Chitra is good at. Any questions about Chitra? That's an interesting point. Memories with Happiness says astrology is an art. Astrology is an art, but it's also a science and a math. But that is so interesting why Chitra would be particularly good at it. Because Chitra is good at the kind of art which is mathy or calculative or exact or precise, and is good at the kind of math which is expressive of subtle ideas and subtle situations. All right. So then we'll go on. Oh, I can wave at people on Facebook. Let me try that. Um, is Chitra like a perfect blend of Mercury and Venus? Yeah, Chitra is very much similar to if you could combine Mercury and Venus. But I think you might be missing some of the things by talking like that. It seems to just be a smart, benefic nakshatra. Ayush says, people associate Chitra with rivers. Do you have any thoughts on that? I would need to see some context in which it was associated to rivers. Then I could maybe analyze why. So obviously I haven't really heard it associated to rivers. Venus and Chitra, good or bad? Like I said, you don't know what to do with that information, so I'm slow to answer it, but basically it's good. So I'm loath to answer it. All right, let's move on from Chitra. We are going to look at Swati. Those who are born on... Now, what I want to do is I want to make a grid and plot the nakshatra tara balls on this grid so everybody can see where these nakshatras are, east to west and north to south, because it's very important also that a lot of the reason why nakshatras were connecting to particular gods is because of their position and also the way they looked. So without knowing their position and the way they look, most of us, 90% of us, we are a little confused about what they signify. So I wanted, it's one of my projects that I want to do, although right now, for some reason, because of the stress levels of the coronavirus, I can't really take up any projects, it appears. But when I'm able to do projects again, I'll be doing that. All right, so let's look at this next one. Swati. The reason why I thought of this with Swati is the most interesting thing about Swati is how far north it is, etc., how far off its nakshatra field it is. Those who are born on the lunar day of Swati will delight in dealing with birds. Why birds? K2 native wants to know, can we do observational astrology with nakshatras? Yeah. Look back. One day I'll make a playlist, but for now, look back on my YouTube channel at the other chapters and other sessions that we did on Brihat Samhita. This is what, like, whatever chapter this is, all the chapters, this is chapter 15, so 14 chapters coming up to this were all about observational astrology, basically on nakshatras. Birds, so why birds? Nakshatra. Well, what's Swati all about? Swati is all about Vayu and wind. And what does Swati really signify? Swati signifies flying away. Getting away, going away. Blowing away, things like that. So he says birds flying away. Deer and horses, things that can run. Things that run away. Things that run or things that run away are good for Swati natives to deal with, to work with. So I don't know how you would find a career these days with birds, deer, and horses, but you don't have to be so simple about things. When you listen, you can say, maybe airlines, maybe transportation, travel, anything that helps people get away. K2 wants to know if a malefic Swati placement would create fear of birds. I guess so. It would be interesting to see a case study. He says you can deal with grains. You can be merchants with grains and beans. I'm not really sure why. These references are kind of lost to me because of economic changes and cultural changes. This is interesting though, of weak friendship. Abstentious, but skilled tradesmen. So this is interesting, and this is why Memories wants to know, does Swati have feminine energy if it's fleeing? No. Actually, women don't flee, they group up. Swati's way of fleeing is not really in fear, but it's fleeing because it prefers individuality. Swati prefers individuality, and it's dissatisfied with things, so it leaves. It's not a feminine nakshatra at all, and this is why it's weak in friendship and abstentious. It abstains. It prefers to be away from others. Avanor wants to know: can Swati be very confrontational when it feels like it's being trapped or made to conform? Yes. Swati needs to be given space. It needs to be given its freedom and independence. Then it's happy. But if you try to trap Swati, it's like trying to hold wind in a jar. Can't do that very good. So, that's what the weak friendship things means. It's difficult for Swati to keep contacts well, or keep relationships for very long. And skilled at trade. Why skilled at trade? Because it's good at shipping, moving things back and forth. So basically what Swati is really good at is moving things around and like selling and buying, transporting, and also kind of doing things on its own. Do things on its own. Any questions about it? Any more questions? So both Swati and Chitra, was it Chitra? No. So Swati is particularly like a travel-y or transportationally oriented nakshatra. So Ketu is saying, well, it's individualistic. In Libra, it has Mars rulership. It's not about that. That's how modern people think about nakshatras. The nakshatra is about this because of where it is, where the star is. The nakshatra is based on a star. The Swati star is very far away from the ecliptic and very far away from its nakshatra zone. That's why it has these significations. Pallavi wants to know if these things can also apply to the ascendant nakshatra. Really, what we're really learning from Varahamihira right now is what these nakshatras are all about. He's doing it based on the calendar day. If you're born on this calendar day of this nakshatra, but he's explaining what this nakshatra is about. So, yeah. So if you have like a prominent planet in this nakshatra or an ascendant in this nakshatra, then you're going to be feeling these things. All right, next up. Vishaka. Vishaka is next up. Maybe we can get to Anuradha as well. Anuradha is always interesting. Those who are born on the lunar day of Vishaka will grow trees yielding red flowers and red fruits. So for some reason, he's got Vishaka associated with red. Thank you, Trivigram. Thank you. My wife all of a sudden gave me a present, and it's like one of my favorite shirts. And see, this is what I'm talking about for a 108 shirt. Some kind of cloth like this. And this color. All right. So, those born on the day of Vishaka will grow trees yielding red flowers and red fruits, be dealers in jingly seeds. With Mexican jumping beans, cottons, black gram, and chickpeas. So lots of different kinds of grains. And be worshippers of Indra and Agni. All right, so there you go. It's the combination of Indra and Agni. So maybe that's why he likes the redness. What's Indra and what's Agni? Indra is rain, Agni is the sun. So the sun and the rain. And this is why Vishaka is very agricultural. Things are very good with nakshatra. So he lists lots of stuff to do with grains, because Vishaka is great with agriculture, growing things, producing things. So he's saying grow trees, deal with plants, seeds, beans, cottons, grains, and worship Indra and Agni. So that's basically what Vishaka is all about, is you putting the two things together to make a product. That's why it's called Vishaka. Vishaka means this. So you're putting two things together and then it produces a product. This is why Vishaka is sexual. It's one of the more sexual nakshatras. But the basic application of that motif is to rain and sun combining to let seeds grow. So if you can deal with rain, sun, weather, farming, then it's great for Vishaka. Yeah, so like other things that you think of with Vishaka, like it's very goal oriented, etc. He doesn't mention that at all. Now, this is really interesting. Okay, any questions now about Vishaka? The food of a bird, that's interesting, Ayush. Like it's next to Swati, which is kind of like a bird. Vishaka is greens, where the birds fly. Is Vishaka fond of women? Vishaka is fond of sex. Because Vishaka is fond of uniting things. So it might not always pan out as actually healthy sexuality, but it may fond of coupling. This is the perfect word. Vishaka is fond of coupling. But it couples for products. It doesn't quite couple for the sake of coupling, like Anuradha does. Anuradha is the Uttara Vishaka in some ways of thinking. So Anuradha is a more developed type of Vishaka. Vishaka just likes to couple for the sake of product. So it likes coupling, but it's not necessarily that it loves the other partner, but it wants to get something out of the partnership. So it's actually, I would suggest, besides all this agricultural stuff, where Swati is very good at individual enterprise, Vishaka is better at group enterprise. Yeah. K2 native can attest to the Vishaka libido. Yeah, we have a lot. A famous person came up to me once and said, I forget what they had in Vishaka. They have something like the moon or ascendant in Vishaka, and they were, in their opinion, too into porn. And they wanted to know if it was because Indra has vaginas all over his body. So it's not exactly it's not really like that because of Indra. It's just because actually you're dealing with the motif of putting two things together to get a product. So it's like putting together the sun, Agni, and the rain, Indra, to make a seed grow. It's a sexual energy. And so, that's why it's like that. All right. Let's look at Anuradha. Those who are born on the lunar day of Anuradha will be valiant. Valiant. It's interesting. Heads of parties. So what word to focus on? This is interesting. Do you focus on the heads or the parties? Fond of the company of sadhus. Sadhus are what? English, you can say saints. That probably where the word saint came from, the word sant, which comes from, it's related to the word sadhu. Basically it means that. So like morally good people are sadhus. So those who are born on the lunar day of Anuradha are valiant, heads of parties. They fond of the company of sadhus. They keep vehicles and grow every kind of crop. Every kind of crop. So, if you thought Vishaka had a lot of crops associated to it, he's saying there's too much. I'm not even going to mention how much Anuradha produces. So Anuradha is basically very much like Vishaka. So the same deal with Vishaka, like how it's going to have interest in coupling. But it has, like, it doesn't have a goal-oriented sense to the coupling. It actually falls in love. So it couples for the sake of the coupling. So I'm just looking at some of the questions that are coming up here. Just about the word sadhu. Memories. See, memories. I told you that sadhu means good, morally good person, and then you were busy saying sadhu is a priest or a holy man, and then you say, can only men be sadhu? So, no, nobody was. You just changed the grammar. It's sadvi. This translate. I'm not sure. Now, all right. So the next one. What does he mean by valiant? What it means by valiant actually is a bad translation. They have a lot of libido. It's viram. They have a lot of aspiration. Is another way to put it. Oh, this is an interesting question from Kalki. I have to click to see more of it. I can't see more Kalki. Put the second half again. What is your take that in some Gaudiya Vaishnava texts it is said that Radharani was born under Vishaka, but generally it... Let me see. Just tell me what comes after it. So yeah, valiant means a lot of aspirations, a lot of ambition. They have high ambitions, virility, good word. Heads of parties. Now, that means like they're leaders. Fond of the company of sadhus. They have aspirations. But the aspirations are, and so does Vishaka. So this is just highlighting that their aspirations are a little less simple and materialistic. So he says, what is your take of that? In some Gaudiya Vaishnava texts it is said that Radharani was born under Vishaka, but generally it is known that she was born in Anuradha. Well, in the old days, in the very old days, this was often considered one nakshatra, Vishaka and Anuradha, just as the Purvashad, the Ashadas are one nakshatra, the Bhadrapadas are one nakshatra, and the Palgunis are one nakshatra. Similarly, Vishaka and Anuradha were thought of as one nakshatra because of the way the stars made the constellation, or the way they connect the stars. Also, you can have a situation where the lunar day is unclear. It's on a borderline day where you can get Rikta Tithi or the other Tithi, where you can get, I forget what the technical name is for it. You can get the nakshatra you can get the calendar day nakshatra, skip a nakshatra, or stretch a nakshatra. Yeah. All right, so Anuradha. Keep vehicles. Keep vehicles. What's that all about? Don't know. Grow every species of crop. That's the basic thing. They're very interested in producing. They're very productive. All right. My brain is Brihat Samhita out. I think if you have high aspirations, then you might want to travel or something. And there's a lot of travel going on in this section from Swati on to Jeshta in general. All right, so I'm going to stop this Brihat Samhita right now. But in Nakshatra Sutra, Anuradha and Vishaka are separated. So it means it's older than Nakshatra Sutra. And I just think it's a way of answering your question of why some say that Radharani's birthday is Vishaka. And another possible thing is they might be talking about different things. You have to show me the actual references. They may be talking about, one statement may be about the location of the moon. Another statement may be about the Nakshatra's calendar day. The idea that they're one is really all true. If you got it, you got almost all kinds of vehicles. This happens a lot with clients today. Is they'll be like, but so and so said my nakshatra was this, and then you say my nakshatra is that, and then if I look at the chart, I can see their planet is right on the border of the two. So perhaps Radharani is right in the middle of the Vishaka thing. The Vishaka Anuradha. She's going to be opposite from Rohini. And you know how opposite from Rohini is in the middle of those two, Vishaka and Anuradha. All right, boom. Let's go see Bhagavatam. Stick around. I'll start the Bhagavatam stream in a second, speaking of Radha. Oh, that's interesting, Karen. Ba-dum.